Before we blame the soil, let's find out what tired ground is telling us.
There's a bag of fertilizer sitting at the end of this row, and I'm not going to open it. Not because fertilizer is bad, because I've got a hunch it isn't what's wrong here. Look at this garden. Last week of August, the tomato vines have quit pretending. The straw I put down in June has vanished. The ground over there is wearing a smooth, tight skin, like somebody poured a thin layer of concrete and forgot to mention it. And the weeds along the fence are carrying seed heads already, which means they've stopped trying to grow. They're trying to reproduce. If your garden looks anything like this, your first...
Watch the difference. The same water can reveal two very different problems.
Instinct is probably defeated. Tired means hungry. That's how most of us were taught to read it. So before we settle on that, watch this. Two patches of bare ground, 6 feet apart. Same garden, same soil, same rain all summer. Pouring on the first one, slow and steady, and it's gone. Straight down.
Weak plants can be limited by things fertilizer simply cannot fix.
No argument. Now the second. The water's sitting on top, beating, sliding sideways, hunting for the low spot. It'll evaporate before it ever reaches a root. Both patches would take the same handful of fertilizer. Only one of them could use it. That's the idea behind everything I'm going to walk you through today. Your soil may not be hungry. It may be thirsty, sealed over, packed down, and biologically idle. Feeding it doesn't fix a single one of those 4 things. Now let me be straight with you, because I'm not here to sell you a story. I can't hand you 20 practices and claim every mountain farmer from here to eastern Kentucky did all 20 by these names. Nobody was writing it down. What I can tell you is what this country demanded: steep ground.
Remember 4 questions, and those 20 fixes become a whole lot simpler.
Hard rain coming sideways off a ridge, topsoil that walks downhill the second you turn your back. The record of these mountains includes plenty of gullied hillside and worn-out ground. So the habits that lasted here weren't magic. They were the ones that kept the dirt from leaving. Some of what I'll show you is old, some is new, and some is old practice that testing corrected. Here's how we'll walk it. Before September, there are really only 4 questions worth answering about tired ground. Can the soil still take in water? Is it open enough for roots and air to move? Is it covered? And is anything feeding the life in it? And are there living roots coming to replace the summer crop? 20 things, 4 questions. Let's start with the one nobody checks. Before you decide your soil is hungry, find out whether it can still drink. Most of us judge soil by how it looks, color, whether it crumbles nice in the hand. That's not nothing. But late in summer, there's a better tell, and it's how the ground accepts water. Take a coffee can with both ends cut out or a piece of pipe. Push it an inch into the ground, pour in about an inch of water, and time how long it takes to disappear. Do that in 3 or 4 spots. A bed that produced, a bed that struggled, and the path. 4 things can happen. It soaks straight in. It puddles. It runs sideways. Or it wets the top ½ inch and stops cold.
If water won't go in, don't guess. First find out why.
Which is the one that fools people. Because you can water 20 minutes and still have dust 2 inches down. The federal soil folks run this same test with a 6-inch ring, and they run it twice. Because the first inch mostly just wets dry soil, and the second one tells you the real rate. What the test is good for is comparison. This bed against that bed. This September against next. Same can, same water, same notebook. Don't read a whole season into one afternoon. And if water won't go in, the next question is why. There are 2 very different reasons, and they call for 2 very different responses. The first is a crust. Not deep trouble at all. Just a lid. Bare soil takes a beating all summer. Raindrops shatter the crumbs on the surface. The loose particles settle into the pores and pack tight, and when it dries, it seals into a hard skin. It doesn't have to be thick to cause trouble. That skin slows water going in, slows air exchange, and it'll stop small seeds coming up at all. Ground with low organic...
A crust is surface trouble. compaction is deeper and needs a different answer.
Organic matter and nothing covering it is most likely to do it, which describes a lot of tired August beds. Here's what I'd like you not to do. Don't fire up a tiller and pulverize 8 inches of soil to fix a problem 1/8 of an inch deep. Dampen the surface lightly, then take a rake or a scuffle hoe and scratch the top, barely disturbing anything. Crack the lid and let air and water down. The conservation guidance says the same, and says do it while the ground still holds some moisture, not bone dry. Sometimes the soil isn't compacted 6 inches down. It's simply wearing a lid. But sometimes it is compacted 6 inches down. So check, don't assume. Compaction is when soil particles get pressed together and the pore space between them collapses. Those pores are the plumbing. Squeeze them shut and roots slow, water backs up, and the organisms that need oxygen go quiet. Here's a test anybody can do. Take a wire flag, the kind they mark utility lines with, or straighten a coat hanger. Push it straight down until it bends and note the depth. Rutgers uses a simple scale. 12 inches or more before it bends is good ground. 4 to 12 is fair. Bending before 4 inches means compaction. Test in a zigzag across the garden, not one spot. You're hunting for a pattern. If the flag stops at the same depth in 6 places, that's a layer, not a rock. Check the paths and picking spots too, because that's usually where the trouble.
A lot of compaction starts with our own footsteps on wet ground.
Lives. And if you find real compaction, repair only what's damaged. Treat it like a bruise on one apple, not a reason to dump the basket. Take a garden fork or a broad fork. Push it in, rock it back gently to open cracks, pull it out, move a hand's width over. Do it again. You're not flipping the profile or mixing layers. You're making channels. Timing matters more than the tool. Never do this when the ground is wet. Grab a handful and squeeze. If it holds together as a mud ball, come back in a few days. If it crumbles, you're fine. Working wet soil is the fastest way to create the exact problem you're trying to fix. And on clay, those clods can last for years.
Next, stop tomorrow's weeds from getting planted in your soil today.
Brings me to the cheapest soil improvement I know of. Stop stepping on the ground you want to grow in. Most home garden compaction is made by our own feet. One step on wet soil presses the pores shut in the top few inches, and after enough seasons walking the same lines, you've built a hard pan without ever owning a tractor. So decide where the beds are and where the paths are, and honor that line even when it's inconvenient. Put wood chips or old straw in the walkways so they stay usable in the mud. You'll feel foolish walking the long way around a bed. Do it anyway. Nothing else you can do this month improves soil structure for free, permanently, and while you sleep. That's 5 things, and I haven't added a thing.
We're sorting, not stripping. Some residue feeds soil, some carries trouble.
To the soil yet. Now the soil can breathe. Before we put anything into it, let's stop losing what's already here. 6th thing. Go after the weeds that are making seed, and go after those first. Late August weeds aren't competing with your vegetables anymore. The harvest is mostly decided. What they're doing now is banking. Every mature seed head is a deposit into the seed bank in your soil, and you'll pay interest on it for years, so triage. Seed heads first, then the ones about to flower. Small seedlings can wait, and if a weed is carrying ripe seed, don't toss it on a cool compost pile. Most backyard piles never get hot enough to kill weed, seed, or plant.
Don't yank every healthy plant. Those roots still have work to do.
Pathogens, so that pile hands it right back to you next spring. One evening's work in the right week saves a lot of stooping next May. One plant that goes to seed makes hundreds of chances for a plant that doesn't. 7th thing, and this is where a lot of good advice goes wrong. Sort your crop residue instead of clearing it. The old habit is to strip the garden bare the minute the summer crop quits. Clean beds, nothing standing, satisfying to look at. But bare and clean are 2 different things, and only one is helping you. So sort. Healthy vegetation goes to the compost pile or gets chopped and left on the surface as cover. Anything that carried disease or a bad insect problem leaves the garden, because a lot of the fungal trouble we fight overwinters in the debris it came from. Extension plant pathologists are consistent about that. Late blight foliage, badly spotted tomato leaves, squash vines hollowed by borers, cucumbers that wilted and died young. Those go. That's the removing. Here's the part people don't expect. Eighth thing. Don't pull every healthy root out of the ground. When a bean plant or a healthy pepper finishes,
When bare soil appears, cover it before weather starts taking it away.
the instinct is to grab the stalk and yank. Instead, cut it at the soil line and leave the roots where they are. Roots aren't a byproduct. They're one of the most important sources of organic matter the soil ever gets, and they deliver it down in the profile instead of on top. Fine roots break down and feed the soil life, and the channels they leave become pathways for water, air, and next year's roots. Beans and peas are the best example. Those nodules are nitrogen the plant pulled out of the air. Yanking them to tidy the bed throws away the best thing they made. Above ground, that dead bean plant looks like trash. Below ground, part of it is still food, now the honest exception, because this isn't a universal rule. If the plant was sick with something that lives in the soil, the roots are the last thing you want to leave. Root, not nematodes. Clubroot on cabbage family plants. Wilts that come up through the roots. If you saw knots and galls earlier this season, or a plant died from the bottom up, those roots come out. Leave the roots of healthy plants. Remove the roots of sick ones. That's the whole rule. Ninth thing. The minute soil is exposed, cover it. This is the habit that separates gardens that hold their ground from gardens that lose a little every year, and on a slope it isn't close. Cover does 4 jobs at once. It takes the impact of the raindrop, so surface crumbs don't get shattered, which is what starts a crust. It cuts evaporation. It flattens the temperature swings that cook soil life in an exposed bed. And it keeps weed seeds in the dark.
Before adding fertility, give that ground one honest, deep drink first.
So when a crop comes out, something goes back on. Mulch, chopped residue, a cover crop, or the next planting. That day, if you can. A bed left naked 3 weeks in September is 3 weeks of erosion, crusting, and free rent for weeds. 10th thing, and this one saves you money. Repair the mulch. Don't replace it. Every fall I see people rake off the old mulch, haul it away, and buy new. Stop. Old material breaking down isn't failure. That's the whole point of organic mulch. It's supposed to disappear into the soil, and while it does, it's feeding organisms and improving structure. So walk the beds looking for 4 things instead. Where has it thinned enough to see dirt? Top that up. Where has it packed into a mat that sheds water? Fluff it. Where is it so deep seedlings can't get through? Pull some off. And where is it shoved against a stem? Pull it back a couple of inches. Repair only what needs it, with material you already have. That's 10. Half the list, and so far I've spent nothing at all. Now the part I think matters most, and it's the part almost every late summer garden video skips. Before you reset fertility, reset water. 11th thing. Give dry ground a real drink instead of a daily sprinkle. 5 minutes with a hose every evening is one of the most common mistakes.
Test it again, damp. Dry ground can hide what's really wrong.
In home gardening. It wets the top inch, keeps roots shallow where it's hottest, and most of it is gone by noon. Tired ground needs water low, slow, and at soil level. Set the hose to a trickle or lay a soaker line and let it run long enough to reach the root zone. If you see runoff, stop, let it soak, come back in half an hour. 2 or 3 shorter cycles get water deeper than one long blast that ends up in the path. Then check your work. Push a trowel in and see where the wet line stops. Most people are shocked. 20 minutes of watering, 2 inches of wet soil sitting on dust. 12th thing, and this one sounds too simple to matter. Water the ground the day before you work it. Bone-dry soil doesn't crumble. It shatters into powder, and powder is what seals into a crust the next time it rains. Dry ground is also miserable to dig and hard on germinating seed, which is why Virginia Cooperative Extension's fall planting guidance is to plant when the soil is moist after a rain, or water the area thoroughly the day before. So the order is moisten, wait, then work gently. not beat dry dirt into dust and try to repair it afterward. And if you're seeding a fall crop there, scatter something light over the row afterward, even a little compost, so the surface doesn't crust before the seedlings break through. 13th thing. Give it a second drink and pay attention to what you learn. A day or so after that moisture reset, take the same can to the same spot and pour the same water. One plain question. Now that this ground isn't bone dry, does water go in, or does it still refuse? If it goes in reasonably, your problem was moisture, and you fixed it. If it's still...
A soil test answers nutrient questions. It cannot diagnose soil structure for you.
Ponds and runs after the soil's been wetted through, moisture wasn't the issue. You've got a crust or a compacted layer, and now you know to deal with that instead of watering more. That's what a diagnostic is for. Not to improve soil in an afternoon, but to keep you from spending the whole fall fixing the wrong problem. 14th thing. Put compost where it earns its keep, not everywhere out of habit. I like compost. I make it and I use it. But somewhere along the way, the advice turned into 3 inches over everything, every year, forever, and the testing doesn't support that. Compost carries low concentrations of nutrients, so it seems harmless. Over years of heavy applications, those small amounts add up. University of Minnesota Extension sampled community garden soils and found phosphorus built well past what vegetables need. Their guidance is about 1 inch or less per year, guided by a soil test. Manure-based composts add up faster and can push soluble salts up in ground that rain doesn't flush. So spend it where it works. A light layer on a bed you're planting fall crops into, a handful in the seed furrow, a thin top dressing on your worst beds, and on ground that's had compost and manure for 15 years running, nothing until you know where it stands. More compost is not automatically better soil, which leads to the 15th thing, and this one ties the whole video together. Before you reach for phosphorus and potassium, test. A tired-looking plant can fool you. Yellow leaves in August might be nitrogen. They might also be roots sitting in sealed.
Some of the best soil building material never comes from a store. It falls.
Dry, airless ground, unable to take up what's already there. Those two look identical from a standing position and have completely different answers. A soil test is harder to fool. Most state extension services run one, and West Virginia University offers free basic testing to residents. Test every 2 to 3 years, and any time you're about to make a big change. But here's the piece I want you to hold on to, because West Virginia University Extension says it plainly. A soil test does not evaluate the physical properties of your soil. It won't tell you about drainage. It won't tell you about compaction. Think about that.
A stale seedbed uses patience. Make the weeds appear before your crop does.
The most reliable tool we have for deciding whether to fertilize is blind to the 4 problems we spent the first half of this video diagnosing. That's why the bag isn't the first answer. It isn't that fertilizer is wrong. When a test or a crop says the nutrient is short, put it on in the amount recommended. It's that feeding tired-looking ground without finding what's actually limiting it is guessing with money. Now, before the last stretch, I put all of this in writing because nobody remembers 20 items standing in the yard with dirt on their hands. It's called the Late Summer Soil Reset, and it's free. The 20-point checklist, the infiltration test step by step, a crust versus compaction chart, a keep it or remove it guide for residue, a before you fertilize checklist, a cover crop chooser, and a 7-day plan. Links in the description. Print it.
Living roots keep the underground kitchen running when bare soil shuts it down.
And mark it up. All right. We've stopped the losses and reset the water. Now we put something back. 16th thing. Turn what falls for free into next year's soil. The most valuable material available to a mountain gardener in September doesn't come in a bag. Shredded leaves are the big one, and extension horticulturists recommend them specifically for garden soil. Run the mower over a pile and you've got mulch that breaks down at a decent pace instead of matting into a wet blanket. Clean chopped residue, untreated straw, and finished compost all work too. Know what to leave out. diseased material, hay or grass carrying seed heads. And be careful with manure, hay, or clippings when you don't know the herbicide
Choose a cover crop by the job you need it to do.
history, because certain broadleaf herbicides survive the animal and survive composting, and they'll flatten your tomatoes next spring. 17th thing, and it's my favorite on the list. Make the weeds come up before your crop does. It's called a stale seed bed. Market growers use it constantly, and most home gardeners have never heard of it. You prepare the bed exactly as if you were going to plant, rake it smooth, water it as if it were planted. Then you don't plant, you wait. In a week or so, a flush of weed seedlings comes up, all the ones sitting in the top inch waiting on light and moisture. They came up on your schedule, in bare ground, at the stage when they're easiest to kill. Take them out with a hoe, just skimming the surface. Dig deep, and you've only brought up a fresh batch of seed to replace them. Maryland Extension writes about this for vegetable growers and is honest about the limits, so I will be. It only reaches seeds near the surface. It won't catch weeds whose season comes later, and it needs moisture. But if a bed's coming empty and won't be planted right away, that waiting time is free. 18th thing, and it changed how I think about soil. Get living roots back into empty ground as fast as you reasonably can. Most of my life I thought of soil as a place where you put things, feed it, amend it, add to it. Then I ran across the way the Conservation Service describes what happens around a living root. They call it the rhizosphere, the strip of soil.
Start tomorrow's roots before today's crop is completely finished.
Soil hugging the root. It's the busiest part of the whole system, because a growing plant pushes sugars out through its roots, on purpose, to attract and feed the organisms living there. Those organisms turn around and make nutrients available to the plant. In plain terms, a bare bed in October isn't just unprotected. It's a kitchen with the stove turned off. Don't ask only what you can put on the soil. Ask what you can keep growing in it, which brings us to the 19th thing. Choose a cover crop by the job it does, not the name you've heard most. If your worry is holding bare ground through winter, especially on a slope, and you're planting late, winter rye is the workhorse. It germinates cool and it's tough, but it comes back growing in spring, so plan on killing it and giving it time to break down. If you'd rather your cover die on its own so you can plant early next year, oats are the friendly choice. In a cold enough winter, they winter kill and leave a brown mat. How reliably that happens depends on where you live. If you want nitrogen, that's a legume, and crimson clover is the common one around here. Legumes are fussiest about timing, and Virginia Conservation Guidance notes crimson clover may not reliably overwinter at very high elevations. If you're up on a ridge, that sentence is for you. And if you're chasing a compacted layer, deep-rooted brassicas like forage radish can open channels. Just remember they're cabbage family, so keep them out of beds where you rotate broccoli or kale, and no root substitutes for keeping your feet off the bed. Now the timing, and I'm not giving you a date. Be suspicious of anybody who does. First frost in a high West Virginia valley and first frost in North Georgia aren't the same conversation. And North Carolina State Extension notes that planting late in the Piedmont and mountains raises the risk of winter kill. Find your average first frost, count backward the weeks your cover crop needs, and call your county extension office. 20th thing, and I saved it because nobody expects it. So tomorrow's soil before today's crop is finished. We treat the garden like a relay where one runner crosses the line before the next starts. Pull the tomatoes, clean the bed, then plant the cover crop.
This won't build rich soil overnight, but it can stop the damage today.
By then it's October and there aren't enough warm days left for that cover crop to amount to much. You don't have to wait. Growers stretch the window by seeding a cover crop underneath a standing crop before it comes out. Shade-tolerant species handle it best. Clovers, ryegrass, rye. Broadcast between the rows as the canopy opens up and the summer crop winds down, so the seed gets light. Then harvest your last tomatoes standing over a cover crop that's already running. Two things make or break it. The seed needs moisture, so do it right before a rain or water it in. And watch your feet, or you'll trample what you planted. By the time the summer crop comes out, the ground underneath is already green. It was never bare. It never stopped feeding anything. All right, let's walk back down the row. I won't recite 20 items, because you won't remember 20 items. Remember 4 questions. Can water get in? That's the infiltration check. The crust, the compaction, and staying off the beds. Is it covered? Mulch repair, sorted residue, never leaving fresh ground bare. Is anything feeding the biology? Healthy roots left in place, leaves and clean residue, compost where it's actually needed? And is there a living root coming next? Fall vegetables, a cover crop chosen for a job, seed in the ground before the last crop is gone. Answer those 4 and you've done 19 of the 20. The 20th is the soil test, and that's the one that tells you whether to open the bag at all. Now let me be careful about expectations, because there's a lot of nonsense online about reviving dead soil in a weekend. You cannot build rich soil in 7 days. Organic matter accumulates slowly and stable structure takes seasons. The Conservation Service is blunt about it. In the first year, most of what you notice comes from keeping the ground covered and living roots in it. The bigger changes come over the years after. What you can do in 7 days is stop the bleeding. Water that goes in instead of running off. A lid broken. A path that stops getting trampled. A bed that isn't naked. Roots in the ground instead of nothing at all. One last thing. The old mountain garden didn't survive because somebody found a magic fertilizer. It survived because the soil was treated like something that had to feed the family again next year and the year after that. It's slower thinking than what we're sold now. It's cheaper, and it works. So before you buy another bag of anything, go pour a little water on your soil and watch what happens. 10 minutes, then decide. The free companion guide is linked below. Print it and mark it up out in the shed. And if this made you look at your own tired ground differently, stick around. There's more of this coming. Take care of yourselves, and take care of that dirt.